Hey folks, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're taking a look at this knife from Enlan. This is the M06. It's an all-steel frame lock knife. They've got this exact knife with this cutout section, not cut out, but textured like a nail file kind of texture. So they've got that there. And that's the two different ways that you can get this knife. We've got 8CR13 MOV steel. I'm not calling this a Wee Wednesday knife because I can get my fourth finger getting a little bit of hold on there, and my hands are large, and they just barely get on there. So a full 3-finger plus hold on this knife. So it's a small EDC style knife that we're looking at today. So stick around for the full review coming at you right now. So here's the knife. It's a good looking knife. It's not an awfully large knife. It's a medium kind of small to medium EDC blade and handle. Stainless steel handle, stainless steel blade. Quit jumping around with the focus. It's a manual focus and yet it still does that. I don't understand that. I'm trying to figure this camera out. It's actually a little more tricky to use than my previous one from the same brand, the Xiaomi cell phones. It's got a much better resolution, and it's got a good lens too. Good lenses on these cameras, but for some reason it's misbehaving a little bit. And yes, I'm very familiar with it. I actually used to work for Nokia. I know how to use these things. It's just this one's not working quite up to any of my known standards. It's kind of strange. Anyhow, we've got 8CR13 MOV stainless steel. I got this knife through GearBest. I bought it myself. I've paid full price for it. And it's not very expensive at all. We're looking at a knife that's $6.10 US. Not bad. It doesn't say on GearBest that it's 8CR13 MOV, but it is, and it says so right there. The model is M06. We've got a thumb stud on one side only. I wish it was on both sides. If they put it on the other side, they'd have to change this pocket clip. And that's one of my first cons for this knife, is that pocket clip. Functionally, it's a good pocket clip, but it looks like an afterthought. It doesn't look like they planned this pocket clip. I like that it's got 3 screws to hold it on there very well. I like that it serves as an over travel stop for the frame lock arm, but it doesn't look right. It doesn't have the right, see how this is a nice glossy stainless steel here, and this is flat satin. It just doesn't look quite right, and it's the wrong shape, and it's a little bit too big, and it's a very a high carry. You've got between 3/4 and a full inch of knife sticking out of your pocket, a little over 2 centimeters. On a little knife like this, that's a little too much. But, so that's one of the cons. I just have to tell you about it. You've got a nice lanyard hole right there, nice open pillar construction, hourglass shaped pillars right there. You've got a drop point blade, all satin. You can see the satin grind lines, a little bit of a hollow grind on here, nice belly on this knife, good sharp tip on there for piercing. Fairly strong tip because of the way the blade is made with this swedge and everything in that line there. So it's like 4 surfaces coming together at the tip. So let's see if I can get that to focus like on the tip here. There you go. So there you go. You can see that tip is done quite well, and it's quite strong. You've got the Enlan name right there. I like that it's not all in your face and really dark. Model number there. It's a good knife. You've got the stop pin right there. It's a full thickness stop pin, more than adequate for this size of knife. And then the handle here, everything's nicely rounded off, very comfortable. In fact, it's a little too smooth. The sibling to this knife has got this section in here all filled in, and it's got texture on it for some grip. Looks and feels kind of like a nail file. I don't know if that's going to give more grip on this knife or not. But what happens sometimes when I'm holding this knife, because of how smooth it is, I have to hold it just right so I can flip the blade out. If I don't hold it exactly right, then I'm not going to be able to flip the blade out. I need to reposition my hand. So sometimes I've had to, try to open the knife and then I had to reposition my hand and then start again. Not a big deal, but I wanted to let you know about that anyways. I've taken it apart and re-lubricated it. From the factory, it was grinding. I'd moved the blade and you could feel it grinding. You could even hear it grinding. So some dust got into those washers, either at the factory or somehow during shipping. So I took it apart. Here's a picture of the washers. Got one nylon washer, one phosphor bronze washer, and when I just cleaned them up a little bit, and I polished the bronze washer on my strop, my leather strop, and now the action is awesome. The issue was, though, this is a captured pin for the pivot. If I tighten it up just so that the action was perfect and it wasn't binding and it was still no blade play side to side, it would be a little bit loose and it'd be ready to come out. So I had to use my the thread locker that I love to use, the VC3, which is a reusable thread locker. It's not like normal thread locker, from Vibratite. Really good product. And if you haven't heard about it, if you're fairly new to my channel, Vibratite is a brand name that I really, really like for their VC3 reusable anti-vibration thread. It's not really thread locker, but it's that kind of liquid. You put it on there, you let it cure for about 15 to 20 minutes, and then you screw the screw in, and you can loosen it up a little bit, and it'll stay there. And you can take the thing right out, put it back together 6 or 7 times, and it's fine. Unlike other thread lockers where it's one use and then you got to redo it completely. The other product they make is a product that you put onto the end of your screwdriver or right into the tip of your screw head, and it's called Drive Grip, and you get 7 times greater grip. You don't strip out screws anywhere near as easily by a huge margin if you use that product. It's easy to get in the United States and a little bit harder and quite a bit more expensive to get in the rest of the world, unfortunately. But back to this knife. Good knife. The size is really nice. The sharpening choil is done perfectly to sharpen the knife. They did a great job with sharpening this knife at the factory, except for once they got close to the end here, imagine there's a stone turning right here. Here. Imagine this is the sharpening wheel and it's turning downward right there. So they're running this across the stone to sharpen it. And it seems like they did a little bit of this. They tilted the blade when they got close to the end here. So it's done at a nice angle, and then they tilted the blade, and it's a much sharper angle right at the sharpener's choil on both sides. But the rest of the blade, you go in 1/4 of an inch, and it's perfect the rest of the way to the tip. Better than almost every knife I've used, I've measured on for the last, I started about 8 months ago doing my measurements, 7 months, 6 months ago, whatever that is, of the grind angles, and this is one of the best I've ever seen. This is 21.2 degrees on one side and 19.8 degrees on the other side. So that's 1.4 degrees difference, and yet very close to 20 degrees on both sides. They did a great job sharpening this, except for that tiny little caveat there, and I'll show you a close-up of what I mean right there. Okay, so I think we are ready for the measurements in this knife. And one of my viewers asked me to put an icon on the screen right here when I'm doing the measurements so that he can fast forward it and see exactly when I'm done. So I'm going to try that. I don't know what I'll use for the long term, but for this video, as long as that orange thing is here in this corner, I'm talking about the measurements. Okay, the weight of this knife, it's 71 grams, 2.5 ounces. The cutting edge from the tip to the sharpener's choil, 6.48 centimeters, 2.55 inches. The blade length, so the tip of the blade to the closest spot on the handle, is almost the same, 6.65 centimeters, 2.62 inches. The blade thickness is 2.43 millimeters, that's 0.0955 inches. The blade depth, this measurement, 1.97 centimeters, 0.77 of an inch. The thickness of the edge behind the grind on this hollow grind It's 0.55 millimeters, which is 0.0215 inches. Very perfect, very good thickness behind the grind. I love that. Grind angle, I already talked about, 21.2 degrees and 19.8 degrees. Very close to 20 degrees per side, which is what I love on a knife like this. The handle length is 9.5 centimeters, 3.74 inches. The grip area, so between my thumbs, 7.62 centimeters, 3 inches. The handle thickness, not counting the pocket clip or not counting the screws that are sticking out a little bit, but just from the edge of the body to the edge of the body, is 0.8 centimeters, 8 millimeters. That's 0.315 inches, so just under a third of an inch. The handle depth, that's this way, and I measured it right there where this finger choil ends, right there. And that is 2 centimeters. That's 0.8 of an inch, 0.8 of an inch. And with the knife closed, it's just slightly more. It's, where is it? 2.18 centimeters. That's 0.86 of an inch. And the total length of this knife is 16.2 centimeters. Forgot to convert that to inches. And inches of that is on the screen right here. So how much does this knife cost? Well, I already mentioned, but that might have been on a previous take. This knife costs $6.10 American at GearBest. I've seen it at some other places, like DHgate has it for more than twice as much. At Amazon.com, you can get it for over $20 US. So yeah, if you're going to want to get this, go to GearBest. And if you want to use GearBest, use my links down below, please. That way I get a tiny bit of a commission and they get to realize that I am an asset of theirs as a person who sends customers their way when they have a good product. And this is a pretty good product. There is almost no chance that CBSA is going to take this knife away from you if you buy it and have it shipped to Canada. It's just not the kind of knife that they're looking for, but I can't guarantee what they will do or not do, but they do like knives with thumb studs, as in they allow those kind through, generally speaking. Fit and finish on this knife, it's above average, but that's considering its price point. For its price point, it's a good knife. Lockup is quite good. It's solid side to side, up and down. That's after I've optimized it. Lockup, it's a little over halfway across right there, quite close to that. So it's got some life left in it for sure. And no blade play. It's centering when I've closed the blade. It's close, not exactly centered, but quite close. If I get it perfectly centered, then there's a little bit extra resistance and it makes it a little bit harder to flip open. If you want the knife to be more challenging to flip open, just tighten it up a little bit on the pivot and it'll be a little bit harder to open. If yours does grind like mine did when you get it, do take it apart and clean it up and re-lubricate it. So fit and finish is good. It feels good in the hand. It looks good. It cuts very well. They did a great job sharpening this knife, and the grind angles are good. And I do like a hollow grind, especially on a little knife like this. What are the cons? Well, I already talked about the pocket clip. A smaller pocket clip would be nice, and maybe a pocket clip on both sides would be nice, but then I would also like to have an over travel stop, but be that as it may. And like mini Enlans, and I already mentioned that, action is not all that great from the factory. But you can get the action on most Enlans to get very good simply by doing a little bit of optimizing yourself. And basically it is cleaning it up and often stropping the phosphor bronze washers, because sometimes they're a little bit rough. They've had some fine grit in it or something. And if you just strop it for a while on the one side, the washers are stamped out, which means they've got sometimes a tiny bit of a burr on one side, and yet they're very smooth on the other side. So I strop both sides, but I put the super smooth rounded side facing the blade and the other side facing the handle. That way, if one side's going to stick, it's going to be the side facing the handle, and the side facing the blade will be smooth, and that will help the action. I just prefer it to be smooth on the blade side instead of on the handle side. So there you go. That's pretty much everything there is to say about this nice little knife. If I was to buy it again, I would probably get the one that's got the solid body. That would weigh a tiny bit more. This one is 71 grams, which is 2.5 ounces. You know, so that one might be 2.6 ounces at the most. So you might want to consider that. I think I would change my mind and get that one next time. So if you like this knife, please consider getting one. Give this video a thumbs up if you like the video, regardless of if you like the knife or not. That's what the thumbs up's for, by the way. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. And thank you to my Patreon supporters. You guys are very helpful. I really do genuinely appreciate it. Remember, guys, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.